Today, there are 2 million descendants of French-Canadian immigrants living in New England. These are our stories. Welcome to the French-Canadian Legacy Podcast.
Venez tous jeunes filles et garçons, je vais vous raconter l'histoire de notre immigration ici au USA, de grands aventuriers de pays étrangers.
This is the French-Canadian Legacy Podcast. I am Jesse Martineau. Now, first and foremost, it is great to be back. This podcast is such a passion for Mike and I, and it's super exciting to be picking everything back up again. I'm particularly excited, of course, to talk about a new project, French-Canadian Voyages. Now, not long after Mike and I started this podcast, I started talking about how I thought it would be great if we could also get a video project together, because I'm a huge fan of travel videos. And the best of all travel videos, in my opinion, are the videos done by Rick Steves for PBS. And I have watched those videos for many years, and I find them endlessly fascinating. But I got to thinking about how I really believe we had some super interesting Franco-American locations that I thought people should know about. We had already highlighted a number of the locations on the Geo Tour we put together, but I really wanted to put together some videos highlighting these places. So I spoke with Mike about how we could make this happen. I watched a ton of YouTube travel videos, and we got to talking a lot about format and how long each episode would be and what they would look like and what we have for a name for the project, all kinds of things. We talked about whether we wanted the series to be in English or French or both. And then we got to talk about who we wanted to get to host the series. And here there was really only one name that came to the front of our minds right away: Camden Martin. Camden knows more than anyone I know about the history of Franco-Americans. I remember him talking with my dad, and Camden asking my dad about the priest at the church my dad grew up in, because, of course, Camden knew all about this priest. Now, I consider myself more knowledgeable than most about the Franco-American history of Manchester, but I didn't know anything at all about the man who was the priest at St. George when my dad was growing up. And this was the priest in the church I was baptized in, where my parents were married, where all four of my grandparents invested a ton of their time, but a priest from many decades ago was not something I was familiar with. Yet somehow, Camden Martin from Lewiston, Maine, knew the history of this church way better than I did. And it was also important that Camden is completely fluent in both English and French. This allows us to have both an English and a French version of every episode. And finally, Camden is just a natural teacher. He has an obvious passion, and that comes through very clearly when he speaks. He likes teaching others about the Franco-American story, and he is really good at it. After we got Camden aboard, we were able to recruit a couple of others to help us out. My girlfriend Heather Howell joined on to do the filming for us. Mike recruited Mike Johnson from Hudson Community Television to edit anything for us, and we will actually be speaking with Mike Johnson in this episode. We were even given a huge break when a friend of mine from high school, Mike Liberty, made a large donation to fund this project. This French Canadian Legacy episode is essentially just a quick announcement and preview of the French Canadian Voyages video series. Now, Mike and I are very, very excited about it. If you are listening to this right now, then the first video, St. Mary's Parish, is already currently available on YouTube. We will put links to the French Canadian Voyages first episode in this episode's description for this podcast. The rest of this podcast episode will be a couple of conversations that I had about French Canadian Voyages. The first is with our host, Camden Martin. The second conversation is Mike and I, joined by Mike Johnson. This has all been a ton of fun, and I really, really hope you guys check it out. So now we are here with someone who will be quite familiar to a number of our listeners. He's the host of Voyages, the person who knows more than anybody on the planet about the Franco-American story, the incomparable Camden Martin. Camden, I appreciate you talking to us, man.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm not sure if all of that, what you said adds up, but I'll take it.
Oh, it's completely legit. I think anybody who's come across you knows that it's legit. So obviously we're here to talk about Voyages, an exciting new project that we're working on. How would you describe Voyages? What is Voyages?
Voyages, that's a great question. I think, to try to find a comparison, when we talked about the project, I always I thought of it as like a a Rick Steves guide to Franco-American history, kind of. This idea of a very quick blast of information in 30 minutes. You try a little bit of this and that. I was hoping to try to encapsulate that kind of enthusiasm and that, bombarding of information, but all within making it accessible and interesting.
Nah, I like that very much. Yeah, I'm a big Rick Steves guy myself, for sure. And that is kind of the way it is broken up, where we have like, Rick Steves would visit different locations, put a bunch of locations together and make an episode. That's kind of how we're doing it now. We could release different locations one at a time, but put them all together, and you'll have. And this first stop is Manchester. You'll have a pretty good voyage to the west side of Manchester. What were your thoughts when you first approached to host Voyages? I'm curious.
I was super honored, to be honest with you. It's evident that I very much am passionate about Franco-American history, and I love talking about it. So I was very honored when you guys approached me. I love to talk about that stuff. I mean, it's also more interesting to talk about to people who find it interesting rather than the people I subject to listening
Sure.
to Franco-American history. I was very excited because I can see that there's a lot of potential there. It's kind of filling a void that doesn't quite exist right now currently with this kind of these quick video capsules of different Franco-American sites across New England. Yeah, I was very, very excited. Thank you.
No, of course. And I mean, when Mike and I were talking about who could we get to host it, it was number one on the list right away for sure. And a big reason, of course, is that it was important to us to record everything in French and in English. Like we
Hmm.
wanted to make sure to be able to hit both audiences. And obviously you're completely fluent in both, but how difficult is it? And I haven't even asked you this yet, so I think it's fun. How difficult is it to record the exact same thing? Because we have the same images for both the
Right.
French and the English versions of each one of the places we visit. How tough is it to say the exact same thing twice in two different languages to make sure you
Well,
stay on that track?
yeah. Well, first of all, when we did Manchester, none of that was scripted.
Of
So,
course, right?
first of all, I got to think of the information, then I got to say it in both languages, right? There's times where there's a couple times where I'm blanking or maybe I'm not speaking so quickly in one of the episodes because I'm trying to remember what is it I said in either language to make
Right.
sure that I say, I'm covering all of that. Sometimes, the way you say something in one language doesn't translate the same, so it's not the same duration of time to express that thought. So the way it lines up with images is something you got to think about. And yeah, it's challenging at times. I think it was a little bit more challenging for some particular videos, but overall, I'm not sure which one was easier, to be honest with you, because I think most of the stuff that I've learned about the Franco-American history in Manchester was done in French. I'd read it in French, so it was easy to express it back in French. And even sometimes when I'm describing things in English, I often refer to things in French. I'll say what the English translation is, but like for example, when we're in front of l'école EV, I say even in English, I'm saying, "Oh, we're in front of l'école EV, the Heavy school." You know what I mean? I'm so
Yeah. Or we find ourselves. I like that.
yeah. Oh yeah, I guess is that
When
something
you
we don't say often in English or?
no, I mean, no.
Oh
It's just that's kind of like your trademark
yeah.
when we're at a location. We
I
find
guess that's maybe
ourselves.
because I'm translating directly from French
That's
because
what
in
I
French you can
figured.
say yeah on se
Yeah,
retrouve devant, so maybe
exactly.
that's so yeah, you're absolutely right, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. That no, I love it. It is kind of like a trademark and it's perfect. It works. Now, how do you obviously your knowledge is ridiculous. How do you prepare for something like recording a video and you highlight a specific location?
Well, so when you guys said, "Hey, let's do the west side of Manch," I definitely reread the materials that I had written in the past. Manchester, I would say I know it pretty well because uh, there's a lot of material that you can find. I have a lot of material at my house. I have a lot of books and things like that I've acquired over the years. And so what I kind of do is like a quick read through, make sure I retain the dates. Um, but it's information that kind of lives in my head all the time. So, I just kind of pull it from there. Didn't require too much, thought. When we did, Northern Maine and things like that, I had to just re-look through the notes again because it's not in, it's an area I master a little bit less.
No, fair enough. And that's good. That's a fun preview of coming attractions. If you're listening to this right now, we've already recorded our second series of episodes up in Fort Kent, Maine. So that's coming. And so, yeah, this project's been exciting, been really, really fun. What do you think is a vision for where this can go?
My selfish ambition perhaps is that I think that I would love for this to expand. I want us to cover other areas across New England, whether that be Woonsocket or Fall River or New Bedford or
Or
different
your
places in Vermont.
hometown?
Oh yeah, Lewiston, of course. Oh my gosh. Um, but my hope is that we'll be able to touch just as much an American public as we can Canadian or Francophone, public. Um, I see what we're doing is something that perhaps even a television company in Quebec would be interested in kind of taking on or something like that too in the future.
I just think it's awesome. During the time I spent, you spent a ton of time up in Quebec, but the 6 months that I lived up there, everybody I came across when they found out that Franco Americans were a thing, I grew up knowing, playing peach nut,
Right,
or that I had ate pork pie or had gâteau
right.
sandwiches or anything like that. When they heard that this was happening, they all get really excited. It's just not a story they hear. So for me, it's really fun that we'll be able to reach some of the people in Quebec in their language. Because when I've gone to address schools before up in Quebec, and when I tell people the joke I use that when I walked in the door and explained I was a Franco American, you would think that I was saying I was a pilgrim because they just assumed that we were all just fully assimilated now and
Right.
like that was over. And so to be able to have someone like yourself who could reach that population in their language, I think is super important and very, very exciting. So
Appreciate
we
that.
are
Thank you.
absolutely
Very
thrilled to have
excited.
you on board and very excited that you spent some time with us tonight, Camden. I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Jesse.
So Mike and I are here talking about the French Canadian Voyages project, and we are very happy to be joined by another Mike, actually, Mike Johnson, the editor of the project. So before speaking with Mike Campbell, a voice that you all are very familiar with, I think it'd be great to meet the new Mike, Mike Johnson. So Mike, can you tell us just quickly where are you from and how did you get into video editing?
Hey Jesse, well, thank you so much for having me on. So I actually work full time as the director of community media at Hudson Community Television. How I got into video editing early on in my career was actually through a game called World of Warcraft. As funny as that is,
Very
I
cool.
just started recording myself making gameplay videos, and I taught myself the basics on Windows Movie Maker back in the day. Now I'm all the way using the Adobe Suite, everything. So it's definitely been quite a journey. I do this day to day, my full-time job, but working on this project was really cool because in my work I do a lot of really hyper local stuff, but this was cool seeing something in Manchester, right? You know, you learn a little bit about the history in that location. As the editor of this, I don't speak French, but I've learned a lot about French from editing this.
You were gonna have to, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So certain words, certain translations, I think that was like one of the more like challenging aspects for me, but I enjoyed that part of it and I'm looking forward to work on some future episodes. I know we got some stuff in the pipeline still after the first batch goes out. So
Yeah, for sure. So, Mike Campbell, if I could just talk to you just quickly, if you're talking about the French Canadian Voyages project, how would you describe it? What is the French Canadian Voyages project?
A video series. We wanted to do like a video aspect since we've started the podcast. And I think Jesse has mentioned this multiple times to me. I don't know if ever on a podcast or anything, but like the Rick Steves of French Canadian landmarks in New England. And
Right.
that's basically, there's a lot of travel blogs out there on YouTube, I'm sure. Everyone has one that they watch occasionally. So we're going to try to do that for French Canadian locations around New England. Kind of, we started with kind of like the Geo tour, and now it's just a video series of that.
Yeah, that's kind of our way of showing that, yeah, we got cool places too. So you can come check out. So let's talk about, because obviously you've had to listen to me talk about this idea for a long time without actually getting it going. But the decision to get Camden Martin involved, how would you, I mean, what are your thoughts on the work Camden has been able to put together on this project?
I mean, he's just a wealth of information that we'd be silly not to tap. And, I'm not too silly enough to say this. He's okay to look at too. If you're going to do a video series, you don't want me or Jesse. No offense, Jesse.
None taken.
On it. You want to be looking at Camden. And I think he's definitely smarter than me. He knows everything about Franco-American New England and even more than that.
Yeah.
So
He
he
knows-
was just number one in our heads when we were talking about
I mean, he knows Manchester better than I do, which is crazy because I spend
it.
a lot of time trying to learn as much as I can about Franco-American Manchester. But a couple of things I do want to give you some credit for, Mike. It was your idea because my whole thought process from the beginning was, again, I love Rick Steves, half-hour episodes. That's awesome. But it was your idea to be like, no, time out. Maybe we should release these more, 3 to 5 minute clips. So what made you think we should go in that direction?
So you want to do short videos that people can click on like once a week and have something to look forward to, and it's not too long. Also, since we were looking for people to help us with this, like Mike and like Camden, we don't want them to write a half an hour episode for each location. I think that might be asking a little too much of people we know. A lot of blogs and a lot of videos I see are like 3, 5 minutes, 10 minutes at most. And I just thought that was a good time frame to shoot for.
Yeah, and it definitely works out. And as you noted, we have a bunch of locations in Manchester. If we put them all together, it would probably could get a half hour. But
Yeah.
to be able to release them the way you suggested at 3 to 5 minutes, I do have kind of one more question for you before we go back to Mike Johnson. One of the really cool things about this video series is the introductory graphic. I think is awesome with the passport. That was your idea. I remember we're sitting in the bookery in Manchester where you came up with that idea. Where did that come from? 'Cause I think it's awesome.
Honestly, it was just something that popped into my mind when we were thinking about like the introduction for the video. Like we're going on a voyage, we're traveling. That's the go-to image I think in my head is if you go to a different country, you're stamping your passport. So I thought it would be fun to have stamping the passport and somehow work that into a logo.
Yeah, it's very, very awesome. Mike Johnson, I'm just big picture curious.
Yeah.
How, let people know how you got involved in this to begin with. You're hanging out at Hudson Community
Yeah.
Television, and now all of a sudden you're doing a French Canadian travel series.
So actually it was I remember it was just Mike Campbell and I talking one day and he said he was looking for an editor for one like a travel vlog series that you guys are working on, and it kind of was just history from there. And Mike told me the ideas of what you guys were looking for. Through revisions, we worked on it together and kind of made it into the final videos we have now for this. I think one of the cooler things that I got to work on that you were talking about was the animation for the like the passport. That was probably one of the things I had the most fun with because it actually took me out of my comfort zone to something I was learning how to use with Blender, that animation software. And yeah, really, really fun working on that thing.
So
Like
that
it
type
came
of
out
graphic
great
is
too.
not something you had done before previous.
Nothing custom made. I've done basic modeling before like that in Blender. I've animated like pre-built models before in Blender, and I knew the interface, but I've never made an intro like from scratch like that. So that was really fun, and it kind of put a lot of that stuff to the test. And I took the assets from that into After Effects and kind of made it into one big cohesive thing that'll hopefully serve the series for many years to come. I mean, that's the nice thing about it. It's short, tells it's a good it's like a good branding thing for the show. I like your guys' vision for that. That was awesome.
No, for sure. And Mike Johnson, I just am curious because you did an amazing job with that introductory graphic. It looks so, so cool. And that's one of the first things people comment on when we show them the series. But you just talk about the process just in general, because I think
Oh
people would be
yeah.
amazed of what we give you versus what we see as a final product is incredible. How do you
Oh,
even go
thank you.
through putting something like this together?
So workflow wise, so you look at what the episode is, you look through all the footage because you guys actually take some really nice footage that gives me a lot to work with in the post production. So I look through what we have there, compile the footage. And then we work on an intro, right? So like the start, you have that passport graphic, and then it cuts to a shot of the Earth. And then I go into there. I actually use After Effects to do that, and they're two separate clips that I combine together. And I have a little keyframe that pops out that shows the location. So like the first episode's like St. Mary's Parish in Manchester. So I have a little graphic that pops out, and I take one of the images that you guys shot and show people the location, and I don't think it doesn't linger, and it goes right to Camden, and he's right there. Like I think that was the vision that you guys were looking for. As far as workflow, for something like this, I had a lot of good bases to work off of the stuff that you guys gave me in terms of logos, materials. So it was very helpful. And then Camden, like you guys said earlier, he's like a natural in front of the camera. Like he's got that camera energy. I guess it rhymes with Cam, right? But yeah, no, he's really good, and I think all those things together just make for an editor, it's a really fun editing experience.
And it was a really fun process to be involved with filming. I will say that. Heather Howell, my girlfriend, and I, we got together with Camden, visited. Oh, actually, we went to all these sites ahead of time to just get regular, I guess, called B-roll footage, and then we came back with Camden and shot everything again. And it was just amazing how he was able to put everything together, 1, 2 takes, just off the top of his head. It
Yeah.
was just able to come up with everything right off the bat. I mean, he had obviously done a ton of preparation for everything, as he does, because he's super prepared. But just the way he was able to execute it just off the top of his head like that with no notes in both English and French. Now, how big of a challenge was that for you? Or does it remain for you to have to edit everything the exact same episode 2 times?
So that's actually a really good question workflow wise, but I actually always start with the English version so I can hear keywords. So when he's mentioning a specific person, like let's say or a place like Lafayette Park in Manchester, I can hear those keywords and know in French what he's talking about. So usually I'll edit the English one first. I get the approval on that version, and I take the assets from that into the French version, and I'll listen. I try to still kind of, if there are any pauses, I'll try to cut them out so it flows naturally. And that's with a lot of the B-roll and stuff, but it's still definitely a challenge for me. It's something I'm working through, learning through each time I edit one of those. But that was like, as somebody who doesn't speak French, that's kind of the workflow for me right now. And it actually helps me learn a little bit too.
That's awesome. And to me, it was incredible when Heather and I are recording this, speaking with Camden after he would do it, usually in French first, because the French is what came more natural to him. To come back and be like, all right, now you got to do the exact same thing in English. Oh yeah, and by the way, we need you to do it in about the same amount of time. And he would. It was so impressive. Really, really impressive. All right, Mike Campbell, I'd just like to finish up one more question with you, sir. Now, would you say is your vision kind of for this project? Where do you think this thing is going?
Well, like I mentioned, the Geo Tour, we kind of have a roadmap of locations. Lewiston, Woonsocket, Lowell. Yeah, you mentioned with Camden, we've recorded Fort Kent, so that's coming. I would think Camden would have a say in us probably going to Lewiston next. His
You might,
hometown, we've done Jesse's hometown. It's only
sure.
fair that we do Camden's next. I mean, I would love to take this to Louisiana and go see King Dunn and do a trip to New Orleans and get down there, go to Detroit. There's places all over, and like the places I've mentioned in New England, the five from the Geo Tour, there's still plenty of others. Like Vermont, we didn't get to any place in Vermont, so we'd want to go to like Burlington or something. Berlin in New Hampshire has a lot of history. There's so many more places, but I think if you're saying big picture, I definitely think this is the way we trick ourselves into going to New Orleans.
I love it. That would be amazing. Well, Mike, I appreciate the conversation. If you're listening to this now, everybody, that means that the video series, French Canadian Voyages, is available. You can check it out on YouTube. We can put a link in the description of this podcast. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it. Thank you both so much for helping me put this crazy idea I had a number of years ago together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Now our fathers look at us and sigh with despair, to think that everything they love we simply do not share. But the spirit never dies, our culture will survive. Each of us must choose how much to keep alive. Each of us must choose how much to keep alive.
Special thanks to Josie Vachon for providing the music. You can find more about her at josievachon.com. This podcast was produced and edited by Mike Campbell. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at fclpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FCL Podcast for more information about the topics discussed. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this episode.